and we are back. It's Farm to the Show. I am, you know who I am at this point. I would hope so. Disabled List Hall of Famer Chris Dickerson with my buddy, friend, pal, longtime teammate, Mr. Paul Janish, who decided to change the entire decor of his little man studio. Paul's going super academic as he wants to put his Rice degree on mass display and removed his jerseys. So I think within the 3 months that we've been doing this, it's pretty safe to say that Mr. Janish is going the straight and narrow right now.
Yeah, just trying to. This is guess and check, man. The college degree. We got the history of baseball on the poster on the other side. We're just trying some things out a little bit more geometrically agreeing to the eye. So we'll see what we got. Better than the you got
Is
the.
that what they do at Rice? Geometrically? Oh, that's right. It's an architectural,
That's right.
mechanical engineering major. If you all don't know about Mr.
No,
Janish, he's
no. Veto. Thought about doing engineering. Freshman year didn't work out. Economics degree, supply and demand. So we're good.
Because it does turn out that engineering is very difficult.
This is not for everybody, bud.
Yeah, it ain't for everybody. You can't be at beer bike at Rice University and be an engineer at the same time, buddy. I can tell you that. I've seen that melee that you guys have, and it's one of the all-time collegiate spectacles. If you guys don't know, I suggest you guys look it up on YouTube and then imagine Mr. Paul Janish riding around on a bike taking beer bongs.
Mixing a little. There's no more drinking and riding. Okay, they've changed some of the rules around here, but yeah, do a
I
little
hope
Google
so. It's
search.
2023. You can't do
Yeah,
anything fun anymore.
but speaking of that's a good way to end up on the IL, which we got a couple of guys that have found out. Judge obviously to the IL after running into the wall in LA. We talked about that last time, and unfortunate. Hopefully, it's not something too significant that's going to keep him off for too long. But obviously, we can agree that that's a huge blow to the Yankees team that's playing really well.
Yeah, for a guy, I mean, they could easily just, change that injury report to, lower back tightness from carrying the Yankees for the entire month of May and, the first part of June. But I think that was something that we brought up was when we saw the catch. I think we were in our text thread, and it's not the particular traditional padded wall that you have out there. There's a curb out there, Dodger Stadium, which the open gate swings met by reinforced chain link. So anytime you're getting close to that thing, like it's not going to end up real pretty. And when he came up, he was a noticeable discomfort, and I think just everybody was kind of holding their breath at that time, understanding that this could be something, and that it couldn't be something larger. Maybe that he'd come back in a day or two, but he was in noticeable discomfort, and I felt like that could have potentially been something, either a shoulder that'll put him back on the IL at a time where they can't afford to have him on the IL. It was great that he came back after the hip, from that stint on the DL, and then to come back and just absolutely rake. But the thing is, from a guy who's been on the DL a lot, coming back and forth, it's just so difficult to pick up where you left off. When you haven't seen live pitching, you start to get in the groove to completely reset at that point. It's going to be tough, and he's going to be missed at a time when you simply can't, going into June, going into All-Star break, and that AL East, and in that that cockfight of the AL
Gauntlet.
East.
That gauntlet. Yeah. No,
You got to keep your head on a swivel when you get into a vicious cockfight.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, bud. The other big one is obviously DeGrom getting some confirmation on the Tommy John surgery. That is less than ideal for the Rangers fans out there. However, the fact that they're doing what they're doing without him is very impressive. I saw what Chris Young, the GM, came out and made a statement, obviously saying, "Look, this is a 5-year contract. We believe that Jacob can come back and be healthy sometime next year." But at the end of the day, they're having an unbelievable season, and this is a huge blow, man. I know that for a guy with that kind of status, and on a team that's playing that well, that's got to be an emotional hit. Understanding that they were hoping they were going to get him for a stretch run, that really, I mean, arguably could change the dynamic of that rotation. But unfortunately, it is what it is, part of the game. But the Rangers are going to have to keep scoring a bunch of runs, bud.
Yeah, and having TJ at 35, but looking at his history the last 3 years, I mean, hamstring, shoulder, forearm, the list goes on, and it's going to be a weird thing when you come down to that Hall of Fame discussion and where he's at and like the injuries. But at the end of the day, like his career ERA, what he's been able to accomplish in these years when he's healthy, it's almost like you have to bypass those questionable characteristics when you look at the injury list when he was coming out of New York. He's so good that they still kind of like, okay, when he's healthy, he's worth every penny. And some people will say that the stars were, the signs were there to sign him with the deal as far as he's been, with his injury history. But I mean, there's nobody better. There's nobody in the game that's better in the last decade than Jacob DeGrom when he's on the mound and he's healthy. And that's the risk that they were willing to take. And I think they are going to, I don't think they're going to struggle. And I think that's a huge sign of positivity that they've been able to get this far and do the things that they've accomplished in that division without him. But with a pitcher like that, that's what they pay him that money for, is to be the absolute lights out starter that you can build the entire winning championship franchise around. And I would think if you had a guy with a DeGrom who's doing absolute shutout baseball, giving you a chance to win every fifth day, you would see a larger separation from out in first place.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of guy to me. Obviously, he's a huge piece during the season, but for this kind of team who's trying to do what they're doing, this is the kind of guy that you think about in a playoff series, right? Like who can pitch the first game, maybe come back later in a 7 game series and pitch again. Those kinds of things. Look, the injury is unfortunate. It's plagued him for the last few years. That being said, you hope he gets healthy. The age thing for a guy that's as athletic as he is and the body type that he is, I don't think it's as big of a deal if he does his part and takes care of his, from a nutritional standpoint and the rehab process. I think that he can come back and be pretty close to what he was before, just because of the way that he's built. It's not exactly we're not and no offense, but we're not talking about Bartolo Colon. You know what I mean? Who, by the way, pitched till he was like 44, but somebody has a
Yeah,
terrible
you can't
example.
you can't tear fat.
Right?
Bottom
Yeah.
line, you can't tear
Yeah.
fat, buddy. Lance Berkman told me that on first base. He was like, "You can't tear fat." The guy never got hurt, and people
don't let
always
hey, don't let
baseball
Lance
always
spoil you,
get a
bud.
whole. Hey, they get a ton of crap for the big boys. Always get a ton of crap. Tommy Hunter, Lance
Uh,
Berkman, all the big boys. But you know
yeah,
what? They're healthy all year
yeah.
long.
La- Lance
Vogelback
is
healthier.
Lance is
They're
put
they're
together.
in it for the long run.
Lance is put together a little better than you think. Tommy Hunter is a black belt, okay, in martial arts. Those guys are they weren't exactly sluggos, but um, anyway, going from pitchers, let's flip a little bit, bud. Let's talk about some of the pitchers that are not having the year that they had last year. A couple guys that were in the obviously Sandy Alcantara won the Cy Young. Manoa, we need to talk about, just got sent down. Opening day starter for the Blue Jays. Obviously not pitching well. Cease in Chicago to a certain degree. The White Sox have been struggling as a team. Obviously, I'm sure there's something to that. Let's start with Manoa,
Yeah,
man. Manoa, coming off the
mind mind-boggling,
yeah, man, I can't figure it out either. I know
mind-boggling.
there's a few things to look at, but at the end of the day, he's walking more guys. He hasn't been as sharp with this stuff, and I think we have to assume there's a psychological aspect that snuck in there, and just you start to question yourself, right? At the end of the day, like I know you're the opening day starter, but it's the beginning of June, and he struggled the way that he has. I think he's, for pitchers that qualify, statistically been the worst pitcher in baseball up to this point. So they sent him down to the complex in Florida. I'm curious to see what exactly that looks like. What do you think when he gets down there? What they got the pitching lab? They're going to try to you know revamp him, so to speak, or is it just a hey, let's get down there
I
and
don't
build his confidence back?
I don't know what it is. I think it's one of those confidence things. Maybe you go down there, but you know how that works. Like you can't be taking big league pictures and throw them against Florida State League guys. You know how that ends up. You've seen it. Eric Milton, Bronson Arroyo, Aaron Harang. Like back in the day when we are in camp, they take that day off. They're on the backfield. They get absolutely shelled by those young
Yeah,
kids. Like that's not where you want to be. To the fact that most pitchers don't want to go throw against young minor leaguers for whatever, because I mean they're all around the plate. Those kids are ready to swing. So like that's
Yep.
It's a thing. You cannot go to the backfield with the young kids and build up confidence when you're trying to work on stuff. That's for sure. But I think, and I'm not going to like comment on the body type, but we're talking about the what we are because it's relevant to the conversation. We're talking about Chris Sale, who's going back on the IL, tall, lanky, you know, injuries again, injury prone the last couple of years. DeGrom, same thing, tall, lanky. Manoa having, I don't know what his workout routine or what his fitness level is like, but early consensus was is that he was really struggling with the pitch clock and having to recover.
Yep.
Last year, he was third worst, third slowest. I mean, Otani was pretty slow, but Alex Manoah was one of the slowest in as far as getting off pitches. And now you have to turn around and deal with the pitch clock. I think that is a significant issue in which he has to function, to where he can't just be out there just taking his time. And if you're not conditioned to move at that pace, your stuff is gonna significantly suffer. So that was early consensus, but um, I think that may play a role. But again, when you look at the breakdown, getting over first pitch strikes, which he struggled, he's been behind the count most of the time. Most of the time, he's not getting off speed over
Yep.
early in the count. I mean, the list goes on when you have this, essentially this plethora that we've seen of these statistics that rank at the bottom of the league. So I don't know where you go from there. It's one thing where you're just not getting ahead, or you're leaving balls up in the zone. Like Dylan Cease in Chicago has been struggling. He was one of the leaders in the AL strikeout last year. Came runner up for the Cy Young Award, and he's been struggling. And I think this started in spring training, where you saw some flashes of him getting in trouble, where he was leaving the ball up. He wasn't locating the curveball, which is a devastating pitch, and
Yeah.
I just don't think he's ever come back with it. But I think, and it's also tough with that Chicago staff who has really good pitching, who's been struggling. Lucas Giolito, who's a Cy Young Award winner or candidate
A
at
couple
one
years ago.
point.
Yeah.
He's rolling out of four. Dylan's rolling out of four. Lance Lynn has been struggling. Michael Kopech, who is struggling, at a time at some times, just been getting absolute nukes hit off of him. It's tough when there's this group break in confidence, and I think that's what we're seeing with Cease in Chicago. Is that and Lucas did a great job. Six innings, shutout ball, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, and so I don't know. It's just weird. Like, I don't know why I feel like this affinity for the White Sox, but with that team, I feel like they can win. And having Lucas and Dylan at the top of that rotation, I feel like they can do better.
Yeah.
But with that Toronto team, it's like he was such a key piece, and to have this just absolutely fall apart for him to get sent down, not just to AAA, but I mean, sent all the way back for like
Yeah.
full reevaluation. And that is a mind boggler for both organization and player. That, all right, what are we looking at? Where do we need to get him back
Yeah.
to
And I
get that confidence back? Is it the stuff? Are we putting him under the camera? And then at that point, the worst thing is you feel like a science project. I
yeah, I
think
think
that's the
that
toughest part.
that side of it, because we can agree, right? Like, you're struggling offensively, which you and I can attest to. You go in the cage, dude, you're having trouble squaring up flips, right? At times, because you're so domed up, you're thinking too much. I got to believe it's something similar. I think both of those guys that we're talking about, we can touch on Alcantara as well, but it's there's an element of that too that's got to be. He's been sent out. Okay, he's been punched. Last year, for all intents and purposes, now it was an unbelievable year for those two guys, right? But that was their first real put it together year, and now they're coming back, and this is a little bit of a sophomore deal. I mean, there's obviously all the you know advanced scouting and all of the video and all the stuff, right? Like, if those guys aren't still sharp now, to me, Cease has different stuff. To your point, like, he throws the ball harder. The breaking balls, if he throws that where he wants to, it's different. I think Mano's got be a little bit sharper. But that being said, you get that chink in the armor, and it's again, it goes back to it, man. It's a delicate thing. It's a delicate thing. I'm curious to see how he responds and what is the time frame, because I saw some of the stuff that John Schneider, the manager, said, who handled it great, but where's his head at? Because now you are
Who
the opening day
knows?
starter. You're not,
You're
dude.
the guy.
You're not in the big leagues, man. You're back in the semi pros, and you got to figure out a way to get right and get back onto the deal. I mean, if I'm those guys and had the years that they had last year, my mind's moving down the road of, like, I'm trying to almost
I'm
think,
trying to make the
yeah,
All-Star game again. I'm trying to
yeah,
like be on
but
TV, mic'd up, like being the
Right.
dude. Like,
Yep. Yep.
you know,
So,
him and him mic'd up All-Star game, Los Angeles. Like, he was the dude last year. And
yep.
then, the offseason goes through, and, I'm not going to say it's like one of those movie things where it's like, we're coming back for freaking Major League Two, and, Wild Thing Vaughn gets all
Sure.
Hollywood and comes back, throwing 92, AWR type of stuff. But, I think that's the most frustrating thing is, especially for like Blue Jays fans, or like, we have this team and like, how does this happen?
Yeah.
Where's his head at? And what do we do? How do we proceed from here? But it's rough, man. You have to imagine when you do that, it's like, all right, what am I not doing? Am I not finishing here? Am I opening up early? Am I not
Yep.
getting the drive? Like, that will send you down a rabbit hole. And that's the worst possible
Yep.
thing. And like you said, I mean, you couldn't have said it better. You get in the cage after the game, and you're, doing inside out toss, and you're popping the ball straight up and sitting back. I'm like, bro, everybody's going home, and you're still in there just like, and then you're going back on the screen.
Right.
I
Yep.
think this is a really interesting case of like this, not just the mental fortitude about, but just understanding the basics and getting back to the basics, and then moving forward, because it's tough, man. And this is baseball, and it goes for pitchers too. And I think that's the most interesting thing about this conversation today, is that we just think about slumps from a hitter standpoint, the 5 for
Yep.
30s, the 1 for 31s, the 5 for 50s. Like, it goes for pitchers too. And when it happens, like, your brain is all over the place. It's like, where do I have to do to get back?
Well,
And that's the toughest thing.
it's like our friend Johnny Gomes said, though. At the end of the day, it's a results-driven business, and so it's about results. And it's a hard game, like you said. It's a hard game. Um, Alcantara, I think, is different though, man. I think he's getting a little bit of. He's a ground ball guy. Throwing a ton of strikes. He's walking more guys this year than he did, but it's not egregious. But I think at the end of the day, he's giving up more. He's allowing more base runners. I think some of that has to do with the shift. Um, he's a little less cause for concern because, again, the stuff is still very good.
Stuff.
And at
Him
the end
and
of the day, that
Dylan, the stuff. Yeah.
yeah, that's going to come back when they kind of they find their focal point or whatever the case is, and they get kind of locked back in. They're an aha moment away from being the best pitcher in the league for a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, both of them. I think that, like you said, you have to be a little bit sharper. You have to be a little bit more crafty, throwing that curveball, the slider over for first pitch. But if you watch Sandy and Dylan pitch, they can get away on two pitches. It's
Yeah.
96, 97, absolute hammer. Sandy on the other end, 90, 98, 97 to 100 with a
Yep.
91-mile-per-hour changeup. They need two pitches to do this. And if you look at Sandy last year, a lot of it was pitched into contact from a lot of balls that were getting rolled over, hitting off the end of the bat, because it's just enough discrepancy in that 100 to that changeup to where balls are going to get and put in play. He doesn't necessarily have full on swing and miss stuff like Dylan with the curveball, but still, he's super, super effective. And like you said, he's one aha moment away. But where is that? Like, that it's just
Yep.
going to come with one good swing. And if you're a hitter, it's just like, all right, pitch by pitch. And it's so easy to say, we're sitting here on a microphone. I'm sitting here on three microphones. Two of them aren't even plugged in. And I'm saying that that's what it is. It's like results. Let's just don't worry about the results. Like, just go with
Yep.
where you're at and execute each pitch by pitch.
Yep. No, it's a tough dynamic. It's hopefully those, at least for Marlins and White Sox fans and Blue Jays fans for that matter, those guys get it figured out. Hey, flipping. Let's talk about one of the most exciting guys potentially call ups of the year, and that's Ellie De La Cruz in Cincinnati. Who, by the way, the Rojos are playing good, man, for about a month now. They got McLean up. He's playing short every day. De La Cruz is up. I think he's going to play third most time. We'll see how that unfolds, but this kid gets called up. I think his first hit was 112 miles an hour into the gap. I know he just hit his first homer, I think, the other night.
To the in the river, he probably hit one of those 500
So
pound mutant catfish for sure.
so he's like a 6'5", 6'6" type, just freak, right? Like
He's an avatar. He's an
he's a type
avatar. He
he's
reminds me
a,
of Gregory Polanco. Gregory Polanco, when he came
yeah,
up, is
yeah,
6'5", gangly, looks like like BJ Szymanski. Nobody knows who BJ is, but if you the body type, just freak athleticism, long, gangly, looks out of control. But the power, the talent, the five tools, like it's all there. And when he
Yep.
gets on the bases, he looks like a legit avatar. He's got the dreads going, stupid pop, stupid speed. He's throwing 100 across a diamond
Yep.
like a young 24-year-old Paul Janish.
Mm.
And I mean, it's exciting. And what has been your experience with playing with phenoms, where you get into
So
that upper echelon of top five prospects that come in after these long awaited debuts?
yeah, so the couple for me, I was in Atlanta when Freddie Freeman and Jason Hayward were young. It's obviously it's exciting for the fan base. To me, a big part of that is at that time you had Chipper Jones, you had Brian McCann, you had Eric Hinsky was on those teams. There's
The
a big
white
part of the vet.
rhino.
That's right. That's right. But the veteran leadership ushering those guys in to kind of like teach them the way, I think is a pretty significant factor. It's interesting in Cincinnati right now. You got some older guys, but nobody. I mean, Joey's been on the IL. He's
He's
obviously been
driving a
there for a
bus
long
right
time.
now.
Right. Will Myers has been around for a long time. Not necessarily a Cincinnati Cog, obviously first year there, but it'll be interesting to see because right now they're really capitalizing on some mojo there in Cincy that with these young players up and they're playing good. They don't know any better, man. I think it's pretty cool to see. And talent is not the issue. Both of those guys are supremely talented. De La Cruz obviously is in a realm of his own. Him and maybe O'Neal Cruz are the two guys that kind of can do some of the same stuff. But really
Almost
fun to
identical.
yeah, no, very similar. But I think it's a significant factor the way that they get to the big leagues. They're going to play good because they're talented, but on the flip side of that, on the back side of that rather, understanding how you carry yourself, how you from a routine standpoint maintain. I think that's going to be a significant factor. But right now, they need to ride the wave, dude, because everything is going good and they are rolling.
Yeah, you were there when Jay got called up, and Jay, I've talked about this on the show. Jay was one of the first. Joey technically was the first phenom that I saw where it's like, you're an A ball, and you're like, all right, this kid is so much different. He's way ahead of the curve. Jay was next. Jay came up in Cincinnati, had a record-setting first couple of games, first five games. I think he's the first player, first MLB rookie come up to have one of seven players. I say that because I was the eighth player to have three multi-hit games in his first five games. But Jay was an absolute nightmare when he got called up, and highly touted prospect. I experienced the same thing with Manny the year after his short debut in 2012 and 2013, and it's just they're a different breed.
Yeah.
And coming in humble, having but again, you go back to having that presence. Manny had Adam Jones, he had JJ
Yep.
Hardy, Matt Wieters, Darren O'Day. Like, these guys were solidified in the league, great dudes, great captains, great ambassadors of the game and how to play, just playing like this hard-nosed Baltimore way, which was huge with Manny early in his career. But with uh, with with what he's got going on in Cincinnati, with Joey out driving a bus right now, I'm really excited to see what he continues to do. But another episode in the books. Farm to the Show. I'm Chris Dickerson, Paul Janish. If you're watching this on YouTube, go leave us a like, go leave us a subscribe, go leave us some comments, see where we're at. Let us talk to the people, where this is a show of the people. Until the next time, we will see you later.
Later.